Everyone loves a good horror story, or at least everyone should. But what always makes it thrilling really is the demystifying that comes with each tale. Watch this video to discover the tales behind aircraft missing, murder mystery cases that are bone-chilling, unexplainable blasts, and many more. The infamous story of the 8-Day Bride starts with two friends and a girl with a lot of underlying love triangles no one was ready to see. However, whether the 8-Day Bride was killed or committed suicide is still yet to be solved.
Happily never after. This is the mysterious case of the 8-Day Bride. It's May 12, 1947 in Severn Falls, Ontario, and 22-year-old Christina Kettlewell had just gotten married to 26-year-old war vet John Ray Kettlewell, aka Jack. They eloped after knowing each other for 3 years, but Christina's family had some concerns about the union. You see, Jack had a best friend named Ronald Berry, who was 28, and the three spent a strange amount of time together. Christina's family had suspicions that Ronald was actually in love with Christina. Ronald even joined the two on their honeymoon. Shortly after the marriage, the three headed to Ronald's remote cottage in Severn Falls, which was only accessible by boat. And after getting to the cottage, Christina reportedly started acting very strange. She was reportedly having mental breakdowns, crying, and then other points she seemed completely dazed and out of it. And a couple days later, on May 20th, Christina disappeared. Coincidentally, this same day, Ronald's cottage mysteriously caught fire. Say what? Ronald came back to find Jack sitting in the cabin with a head injury and pulled him from the fire. He couldn't find Christina in the cottage, so he and Jack got on the boat and went for help. Later that evening, on May 20th, Christina was found past 150 feet from the honeymoon cottage in inches of water, just 8 days after the two wed. Coroner reported the cause was drowning, and codeine was also found in her system. Jack was then interrogated by police for hours. They found he had a head injury and had codeine in his system as well. He said he didn't really remember anything from that day, but he did admit something. He said that Ronald was his lover and the two were in a relationship. I'm sorry, what was that? Ronald was questioned as well, and an investigation into her passing began. In court, Christina's sister said Christina was very afraid of what might happen if Ronald came on their honeymoon with them and was very uncomfortable with the nature of their relationship. Jack recanted that he had a romantic relationship with Ronald, but a jury couldn't conclude if there was foul play or not. Investigators found out that Jack took out 2 life insurance policies for himself and Christina before their marriage, worth about $200,000 today. And who did he name the beneficiary for both? Good old Ronald. Ronald also conveniently had an insurance policy on his cottage that coincidentally burned down. And who was the beneficiary he named? Good old Jack. This case remains unsolved. No one knows what happened to Christina at the cottage or how the fire started. But the two guys maintain that she probably did it to herself. What do you think happened?
Catherine Wright murders her husband in cold blood and doesn't appear to give the court any reason as to why she cooked his flesh for their children to eat.
The most bone-chilling murder cases of all time. This is Catherine Mary Knight, and she's responsible for murdering her husband, but the way she did it is so disturbing. This is John Price, which is Catherine's husband, who she murdered, beheaded, boiled, and skinned his body. But I think one of the most disturbing parts is that when she cut his head off and boiled it, she boiled it so that she could actually feed it to her children. After going through with committing all these horrible acts on her husband, she wasn't done yet. She then proceeded to stab her husband's lifeless body 37 more times. She then hung his body like a dead animal and skinned him with a meat hook. When asked later by law enforcement why she did it, she explained that she had so much fun and loved every second of the process of doing this. After that, she was sent to a psychiatric hospital where she nearly killed 2 more people. Make sure you guys like and follow for more videos.
Pan Am 914 air flight to this day has not been discovered. After flying 37 years into the future, perhaps the people who discovered it should have asked the pilot the right questions before he disappeared, never to be seen again.
How did Pan Am Flight 914 travel 37 years into the future? In July 1955, Pan Am Flight 914 left New York City Airport to Florida. The flight was only intended to last 3 hours, but once over the Atlantic Ocean, The plane and its 57 passengers seemingly vanished into thin air, without leaving behind even the smallest piece of wreckage. After many hours, the rescue squad was sent to locate the plane, but with no success, and Pan Am Flight 914 was eventually determined to have crashed. Most people assumed the mystery would never be solved. But 37 years later in Venezuela, the impossible happened, when Juan Lacorte, an air traffic controller, detected a mystery plane claiming to be Flight 914 asking permission to land in Miami, Florida. The authorities were contacted, and the plane safely landed. However, despite realizing what year it was, the captain was still shocked. He screamed that he needed to leave. He immediately started the plane and flew out into the horizon, never to be seen again. That is why so many people are puzzled.
No one knows why there was an underwater atomic blast in May 1958, but the good thing is, it did not go beyond the waters. A famous bedtime horror story people still tell today is the clickety-clink story of how an old woman was found dead, but with her eyes completely opened to the world, looking at everything but seeing nothing.
Clinkety clink. This is one of the best stories from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and it goes like this. There was an elderly woman who got sick and died. She didn't have any family, so her neighbors took care of her corpse. When the old woman died, her eyes were wide open, looking at everything, yet seeing nothing. Her neighbors found 2 silver coins in her house, so they took them and put one over each of her eyes. The next day, the gravedigger came to take her body down to the graveyard. He was about to close the lid to her casket when he noticed the silver coins. He couldn't resist, and he plucked them straight off of her eyes and put them in his pocket. He looked down at the woman before he closed the lid and saw her staring up at him, her eyes wide open, looking at everything yet seeing nothing. He took the old woman down to the graveyard and buried her there. That night, he went home and took the coins out of his pocket and put them on the nightstand next to his bed. He was just about to fall asleep when he heard the coins rattling on the nightstand, going clinkety clink, clinkety clink. Part 2 is on my page.
What did firefighters look like in the 19th century before they became children's heroes? Also, why did no one tell doctors they looked like the Grim Reaper back in those days with their funny masks and devil-worshipping looking attire?
These are things that used to look creepy, part 1.
Up first is firefighters. Firefighters nowadays aren't creepy at all, and they just wear a lot of equipment.
But wait till you see what firefighters used to look like.
This is what firefighters used to look like back in the day, and they are extremely creepy. They look like the final boss at the end of a video game or a movie. Finally is doctors. Nowadays, doctors are all smiles and extremely proper.
But back in the day, you can mistake them for some sort of devil worshipper.
This is what doctors used to look like, and they honestly look like some sleep paralysis demon that's about to torture you. We should all feel extremely lucky that we did not grow up in the time when doctors looked like this.
The gravedigger in the clickety-click horror story sure got what was coming to him by stealing the old woman's silver coins.
The gravedigger thought, oh, it's probably just the wind, I'll just ignore it. So he tried to go back to bed, but then he heard the coins rattling, going clinkety clink, clinkety clink. And then he thought he heard something else in the distance, coming from down the road towards the cemetery. It was the voice of an old woman, and she was saying, "Give me back my coins." And the coins went clinkety clink, clinkety clink. The wind was so strong making the coins rattle like that, so he got up and he closed his door, thinking that that would stop the coins from rattling so he could finally get some sleep. And that's when he heard the voice again, but this time it was closer, right outside his house. It was an elderly voice saying, "Who has my money?" And another gust of wind came out of nowhere, and it rattled the coins, going clinkety clink, clinkety clink. This time he heard the voice coming from in his house. He just sat in his bed frozen in fear, and with a large gust of wind his bedroom door flew open, and he saw the corpse of the old woman standing there asking for her coin.
How did a whole colony disappear without a trace? The English settlers that moved to Roanoke Island vanished never to be seen again, and it seems the only clue was the word Croatoan carved into a tree. It is believed that the English settlers were abducted, but no one has been able to prove it to this day.
How did this entire colony vanish without a trace? In 1587, a group of 115 English settlers arrived on Roanoke Island, off the coast of modern-day North Carolina, United States. After a few months, it was agreed that the colony's new governor, John White, would sail back to England for more supplies and people. When White arrived in England, a major naval conflict had broken out, and Queen Elizabeth seized all available ships to assist in the fight against the Spanish Armada. When White returned to Roanoke Island 3 years later, in 1590, he discovered the colony had been completely abandoned. The only sign of the settlement was a tree with the word Croatoan carved into it. Croatoan was the name of an island and the Native American tribe that inhabited it, causing some experts to believe that they were abducted and killed. However, that theory is yet to be proven. Others hypothesize that they tried to sail back to England and died somewhere, or were killed by Spanish settlers. But till this day, no one knows.
The legend of Bigfoot has been around for quite some time, and some have been reported to have seen Bigfoot alive. However, what makes this clip valid is perhaps the video evidence of what looks like the acclaimed Bigfoot walking the forest with his 2 legs.
A man just found Bigfoot today. Okay, so a man supposedly caught Bigfoot on camera, with some even describing it as the best footage ever captured of Bigfoot. Here is the video.
These clips tell us that legends and mystery cases can be solved. Still, what makes them thrilling is perhaps the never-ending mystery. Which of these gave you a thrill? Head over to the comment section and let's find out.